everybody, and thank you again for joining us to another session of Akin Developers REI. We have a lot of new faces. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. We really appreciate it. We have the wonderful Lorraine. I got a chance to really chit chat with her for a few minutes. She is really nice to talk to, very friendly. She's been with Fortune Builder as well, just like most of us on the call. Started about 5 years ago. She's going to introduce herself, and she found her way into note investing. And she is so kind that she's going to share with us what she's doing, the strategies. And she shared her information here, but I'll make sure to re-put it, and it's also in the email. Lorraine, it's all yours.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And Aisa and Mickey, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to speak with your audience. I'm really happy that there's some new faces on the line. So I'm hoping to provide a lot of value for everyone on the call this evening. And really quick, before I get started, and I'm not sure if this will help anyone, but as we're putting information in the chat, I don't know if everyone's noticed like the 3 little dots to the very right-hand side of the chat. You can save the chat as people are putting their information in. So I don't know if that'll help anyone going forward. So you can kind of keep track of everyone's contact information.
What happened?
Huh? Did you see the dots? Oh, sorry. I thought he was talking to me.
X just to take it out, or does it go all the way out?
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. So bear with me 1 second.
Okay.
Stop touching stuff.
Okay.
Every time I touch something, something goes wrong. I'm just, yeah. This is bad. I know.
Okay. So can everyone see my screen? I hope so. I'm not the best at PowerPoint, so hopefully everyone can see my screen. Okay, so I'm going to start with just sharing a little bit about myself. My name is Lorraine. I'm the founder and CEO of Melanin Homes. And Melanin Homes, we're basically a real estate solutions company, and we specialize in passive income investments. And most of those strategies are through mortgage note investing. So our goal is to work with individuals, investors, business owners who are looking to expand their real estate portfolio through truly passive real estate investments. And then just a little bit about my background. I am a real estate entrepreneur. I do have 10 years of paralegal experience and more than 12 years of tax professional experience. And I mention that mainly because as we speak today, there are going to be a couple of topics that kind of delve into legal and accounting. And I'm not giving any legal or tax advice, but I do just want to share how that plays into my real estate experience. Okay, so let's just get down to the basics, right? What is a note? So a note is a written debt instrument that serves as an IOU between a borrower and a creditor. So, and just to break that down just a little bit further, it essentially outlines the amount that is borrowed, which is considered the principal, and then it also describes the rate and amount to be repaid, which is the interest, and then the duration of the loan, which is the term. So when we think about real estate investments in terms of mortgage notes, that's when we get into what a performing note is, what a non-performing note is, and what lease options are. But even before we talk about real estate as it relates to notes, I want us to all think about how we're pretty much all already invested in notes. If you have a cell phone that you're leasing from a carrier, if you have any student loans, so me and Sally Mae are kind of hand in hand at this point. So if you took out any loans for your education, you pretty much signed a note in that respect. And even if we leased or financed a car, you signed a note in order to be able to have access to that particular vehicle. So, excuse me, even if you aren't invested in real estate notes, most of us are already involved in notes of some form of fashion. And so a note conveys control over a property while it's actually being supported or backed by a hard asset, which is real estate. When you think about the stock market, it's not really backed by anything. It's more of an intangible asset. So with a note in relation to real estate, it's actually backed by the property. And I want to, oh, it's going too fast. Sorry, like I said, I'm not very versed in PowerPoint, so I apologize. I don't know why it's happening. I can't see the chat though, so let me just do it this way, because I can't see the chat. What's happening here? Sorry, guys. I'm learning as I go.
So, Lorraine, I'm just so surprised. Like, we're doing notes all the time. That's what you're saying.
Right. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. We are already in notes, for a lack of better terms. It's just that when we're looking at it from a real estate perspective, there are a couple of different nuances as it relates to that. I can't, and I'm sorry if anybody's putting anything in the chat. For some reason, I can't see it.
It's okay. We'll be able to read the questions for you.
You can probably, if the chat is in the way, just minimize it, and then when you're done.
Oh, I see it here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can.
But then it's going to be on the screen, so I don't know. Anyway, I won't do that then. Okay. So there are different types of paper when we're looking to speak about mortgage notes. We have performing notes, and I'm going to describe each of these in detail after I go through the list. But we have performing notes, we have non-performing notes, sub-performing notes, tax liens, and tax deeds. And I won't elaborate too much on tax liens and tax deeds, since this is primarily focused on mortgage notes, but that is also paper that can be invested in through real estate. So a performing note, and I'll take you through an example. A performing note is, and since we're all real estate investors or business owners, we already have some background regarding real estate. But a performing note is if you have a borrower, a traditional borrower, going to a financial institution, let's just say Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, one of those institutions, they're going to these financial institutions to take out a mortgage. When they take out that mortgage, oh geez, oh my goodness, this is terrible. I'm gonna exit out of this because this is not working. Okay, I'm just gonna do it this way. Sorry guys if it's not visually appealing. So go back here. Yeah, so in the general aspect of things, when you have a borrower going to a financial institution to take out a mortgage, they're signing a note, which is essentially a promise by that borrower to the financial institution that they're going to be paying back the principal or the amount that they're borrowing to purchase the house at a certain interest rate for a certain length of time, which is generally between 15, 30 years, however it works itself out. Once that borrower continues to make their payments as promised on the notes, that is a performing note. They are promising to continue to perform on their promise to make their payments. Performing note, and hopefully that makes sense. When you have a non-performing note, it is a similar situation in terms of a borrower going to a financial institution, taking out a mortgage, signing a note or a promise to pay back whatever money, however much money they're borrowing, in the anticipation that once they pay off the property, they will now be the owner of that property. For a non-performing note, they stop making payments. They are no longer performing on their promise to make the payments as detailed or as outlined in the note. Subperforming notes is a mixture of the two. A subperforming note, again, same situation, they're taking out a mortgage, but they're making periodic payments. Maybe they're making their payments for 3 months, they stop, they make some catch-up payments, so they're not consecutively or consistently making their payments on their mortgage. And given the stance that we're in right now, especially with the pandemic and COVID, we're seeing a lot of sub-performing notes on the market as well as non-performing notes. There are still, for sure, performing notes available, but that is the general consensus of what I'm seeing on the market. And then you have tax liens and tax deeds. Tax liens, you are pretty much purchasing the outstanding amount of taxes from a property, and tax deeds, you have the opportunity to redeem a property if a borrower is no longer, if they don't make their payments for their taxes. So I will pause there to see if there are any questions or if I can elaborate on anything further in this respect. If not, I'll just keep going.
I'm just going to ask quickly. So the sub-performing notes, it's a mixture of the non-performing and performing notes.
Yes. Yes, essentially, because they're not all the way non-performing because they're still making payments, but they haven't been consistent with making their payments. So that is why it's sub-performing.
Are they considered like delinquent or not? Like they won't have additional costs because they're late or things like that?
In the general scheme of things, you're usually not considered delinquent until it goes past 90 days. So it really depends. And with you being the bank, because that is your stance when you're investing in mortgage notes, it's really at your discretion whether or not you want to add interest to late payments and how you want to structure the contract that you have with the particular borrower. So there's a lot of flexibility involved with you being the bank in these situations. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So what are the benefits of investing in mortgage notes? And as I described, or as I went through the descriptions of performing notes versus non-performing versus sub-performing, with a performing note, you really have the ability to acquire truly passive income. And that's because, as I described in terms of the life of a note, a borrower taking out a mortgage, making their payments on time, you are substituting yourself for the Bank of America or the Chase or the Wells Fargo. You become the bank in that instance. And so you truly you have passive income. If you think about our buy and hold investors that may be on the call, as a landlord, you're responsible for the tenants, the toilets, and the trash. If there is a repair that needs to be done on the property, they're calling you as the landlord to make the repairs. As the bank, you don't call Chase if your pipes break or if your toilet is stopped up. You're not calling your bank to handle that repair. So that is the benefit, and that's why it's truly passive, because you're still receiving payments as if you are a landlord, but you're not responsible for a lot of the day-to-day activities or responsibilities on the property as if you were a landlord. Now, if you're looking into non-performing notes, I feel, in my opinion, that's more of a truly portfolio building strategy because of the opportunity to purchase properties at, I mean, you can get a property for as little as 55 cents on the dollar. Not saying that that's going to be the situation all of the time, but that is a possibility for you to be able to pick up a property at that significantly under market value. And for our fix and flippers or our wholesalers that are on the call, that is truly a beneficial strategy because I'm sorry, I think it was one of the gentlemen that we were speaking with earlier. A lot of the markets right now, it's very challenging to find properties under market value. Either you have sellers who are just unrealistic in terms of the value of their property, or they're kind of mirroring what they're seeing in other markets. Well, this person got over asking price for their property, so I think I can get the same thing. With mortgage note investing, you're not chasing distressed sellers, you're actually investing in distressed mortgages. So that's why I feel that it's more of a truly it's a true portfolio building strategy if you're looking to pick up property or invest in non-performing notes. And then also, because I'll say personally, I've gotten very spoiled in our COVID stance, and I don't necessarily want to leave my house to do much of anything. So being able to do a lot of desktop analysis or hiring my boots on the ground right from my computer at home has been a truly attractive strategy for myself. And so with mortgage note investing, you don't necessarily have to go out to properties. It's not to say that you can't, but you have the flexibility to be able to invest in properties all around the country and not have to leave home. You can make your investments, or you can do 95% of your business right from your computer. So yeah, those are just some of the benefits that I've noticed when when investing in mortgage notes. So just to provide some of the various exit strategies that are available when you're looking to invest in notes. As I mentioned earlier, when you're looking to invest in performing notes, you're receiving payments as the bank. So, so you're receiving payments as the bank, where I think if I can just sit at home and have money deposited into my bank without having to physically deal with the property, sign me up for that 7 days a week, 24/7, because that's really what we want, especially looking to invest in real estate. We not only want financial freedom, we want time freedom. So looking into investments that actually provide us with a truly passive strategy is something that's really attractive to me. If you're purchasing non-performing notes, and then depending on what state you're looking to invest in, you have to redeem the property or go through a foreclosure process. Once you get the property back, now you can sell that property to a cash buyer and kind of do your wholesaling strategy or your fix and flip strategy through notes. So you don't necessarily have to look for distressed properties and then try to wholesale. If you're investing in notes, non-performing notes more specifically, you can actually do that same instance just in a different fashion. Similar to what I just mentioned, if you want to buy performing notes, take back the property, rehab it, and then sell it to a retail buyer, that is also an option. When we're talking about sub-performing notes, I want to preface this by saying this mortgage note investing is not just about kicking people out of a property so you can get a house at under market value. The flexibility in mortgage notes is that you can still do a loan modification. Let's say you're interested, maybe you purchase a non-performing note, but maybe it was technically sub-performing. So you can modify the payments that you're receiving on a monthly basis. So instead of it being non-performing or sub-performing, you can potentially turn this back into a performing note by just either reducing the monthly payments and increasing the interest rates, or just being very creative or flexible so that you can keep families in their property and still benefit from the strategy. So that's an idea that is available if you're looking into sub-performing notes. Lease options, I didn't necessarily get too detailed into lease options, but it's very similar to mortgages, except instead of the person owning the property after the lease option is up, you can either get a buyout. So I'm sure we've all heard of lease to own. So if you have someone who's renting a property, you can do a lease to own. So they're essentially renting the property from you for however long. And at the end of that lease option, you can either renew that particular contract or give them the option to buy you out. So you essentially have the best of both worlds with a lease option. And we can also wholesale notes. So if you purchase a note and you know of another investor or a cash buyer who's looking to invest in paper assets, you can wholesale that note to them and then make a quicker return on your money. All of these strategies essentially sum up to being the bank. So with mortgage note investing, as I've described, you have various flexibility in which avenue you'd like to take. Gonna pause there also and see if
we had a
I
question
can elaborate on anything.
Yes, we had a question coming up asking, where do you buy the notes? Where do you find the notes? I'm sure you're getting there. Maybe I'm ahead of your slide.
No, I think I'm not sure. I think I did have it in a upcoming slide, but I can certainly touch upon it right now. So mortgage note investing, while there is inventory, it's not as readily accessible. So that's part of the value that I would provide with either JV partners or capital partners that would be interested in joining my team, is that I have access to inventory on a monthly basis from mortgage notes all around the country. And so having access to the inventory and having a strategic partner that would be able to do the due diligence or the research on the property and be able to provide you with boots on the ground is what is most beneficial or valuable with working with me and my company. I also am partnered with a company that would be able to provide you with the inventory if you're wanting more of a foundational education regarding mortgage notes. But if you're just looking for capital partners or a joint venture partner, then that's something that I would be able to help with. And I hope that answers the question about inventory. And one other thing that I'll mention about inventory. So these mortgages are coming directly from banks and hedge funds. So that's, I mean, I guess if I take it a step back, that's where the inventory is coming from. But those assets aren't just readily available from Joe Schmo off the street. And that's because hedge funds and banks aren't just selling one-off mortgage notes. It's important to be able to have a relationship or a partnership with a company or a partner who has these relationships, because they're selling them in bulk. Okay. And again, so that's part of the value that I would provide.
So there's two other questions. Christine is asking, how many states are you in with boots on the ground?
So because of my partnership, I have boots on the ground, or I have access to boots on the ground for all around the country. I personally have boots on the ground in one particular state that I'm working with, but I have a network similar to, I mean, most of us here are in Fortune Builders. So similar to Fortune Builders, I team with a network of other investors who would be able to provide boots on the ground to states all around the country. So that wouldn't necessarily be a concern if you're looking to invest in a state outside of where you currently are.
Okay. Verona is asking, please, can you explain how this strategy differs from a short sale? How is it different from a short sale?
So a short sale, you are purchasing a property under what the property is actually worth. When you're investing in mortgage notes, and in particular, non-performing notes, I think if that's what she may be relating it to, you're basically purchasing a portion of the unpaid balance on the property. So in these situations, yes, you don't necessarily have to get approval for a short sale. In a short sale, you have to apply to the bank to say, I want to give you, and I'll just use random numbers. If the person owes 100, but it's actually worth 150, you're applying to purchase or to give the bank $100,000, and then they have to approve you for that amount. For for a non-performing note, you're purchasing you're purchasing a portion of the unpaid balance of the mortgage. So it's really just making an offer to say, okay, they owe 100,000 because it's non-performing, whether there may be unpaid taxes, there may be liens on the property. I will give you 50% of this unpaid balance to take this off of your balance sheet. So it is slightly different in terms of having to get approval from the bank versus the bank saying, I am willing to sell this particular note for this amount of money. So Verona, I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you so much for explaining that. Very clear.
No problem. Okay, so was that all? And we can go back. So
I might have missed. Can I just intervene? I might have missed. I think I heard, but I think my phone kind of went in and out at the when you were explaining. I think someone might have asked, where do you find these notes, or how do you acquire them?
Yeah, so I had referenced that I am in partnership with an organization or a program that gets these mortgage notes directly from banks and hedge funds. So it's these notes aren't necessarily readily available to, and I use this term lightly, average investors. So it's important to understand that when we are having access to these assets, it's coming directly from the bank and hedge funds that we already have relationships with.
Gotcha.
Because they aren't going to sell 123 Main Street note to Verona and sell 234-5 Brook Avenue to Lorraine. You know, they sell them in bulk because that's how they make their money.
Gotcha. And this is where you're saying having boots on the grounds, where you can kind of work in partnership in JP. Got it.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Got it. So we would have to go through you in order to purchase some of these.
Right. Or I'm not the only game in town, I guess that's the term that they use. But yes, it would be beneficial to go through me. But yes, you wouldn't necessarily just be able to like send out marketing and say, oh, I'm looking for notes. You might have some people who are selling private notes. So with mortgage note investing, like I know investors even throughout fortune builders who create their own notes. So for our wholesalers or our fix and flippers who are on the call, if you happen to purchase a property significantly under market value, you can create your own note on a property and then do a lease to own or a seller finance, because essentially that's what we're doing within mortgage notes. We are doing seller financing. It's just not as prevalent as if you're getting them directly from the banks or hedge funds where you can get a significant discount. So if we're relating it to what we're doing in our normal real estate investments careers or our real estate businesses, mortgage note investing is essentially a form of seller financing. So hopefully that answered that question. Okay, so as I went through some of the benefits of investing in mortgage notes, I will identify that there are some disadvantages to mortgage note investing, and I use disadvantages loosely, but yeah, disadvantages to mortgage note investing. And so depending on your exit strategies, I know when we're looking at wholesaling and fixing and flipping, those are generally more of immediate returns on investment. And through my experience with mortgage note investing, it's a bit of a longer term strategy. Yes, once you become the bank, if you're looking to invest in performing notes, you will be receiving monthly payments on your investment. So that is a more consistent return on your investment. But it does take a little bit of time to actually have that note seasoned. So when you're doing a wholesale, you can put a property under contract and sell it to an end buyer the next day. And that is not necessarily the time frame that's involved when you're investing in mortgage notes. Also, it's always important to keep in mind a performing note can always turn into a subperforming or a non-performing note. So being flexible in your strategy is something that's very important to keep in mind when you're thinking about investing in mortgage notes. And vice versa, a non-performing can turn into a performing note. So if you're going into this strategy thinking like, oh, okay, I'm going to pick up properties under market value, and then the borrower turns around and then starts paying you, some people are like, oh man, I was really looking to get this property, but now you're actually picking up a monthly payment. So having that flexibility and not necessarily being tied to or married to one particular outcome or another is important. Going through the foreclosure process. So that's also a possibility when you're looking at non-performing notes. In order to take back the property as the bank, you have to go through the foreclosure process. You have judicial and non-judicial states. So in a non-judicial state, you can typically go through the foreclosure process without having to go to court. So that's usually a quicker time frame in order to take the property back. And then with the judicial, in judicial states, you have to go through the courts, get a judgment before you can actually start the foreclosure proceeding. So that can extend the length of time that you're actually involved in the investment. And then kind of tying into some of my tax background, with mortgage note investing, you do have some limited tax advantages. So if you're more of a buy and hold investor, one of the big benefits of investing in real estate is that you're able to claim depreciation. So that helps to reduce the amount of income that you're claiming on the property. But since mortgage note investing, you're technically investing in the paper versus the property, you don't necessarily have that tax advantage of being able to claim depreciation on the property. And there's a bit more other tax strategies involved with that as well, but I'll just kind of leave it at that because I can go down the rabbit hole when it comes to taxes. So yes, okay. So who should invest in mortgage notes? I mean, in my opinion, I think all investors should at least have this as part of their portfolio. This doesn't necessarily have to be your end all be all type of investment, but I do think it's definitely something to consider, especially if you're already involved in real estate. And so some of the questions that I wrote down in terms of trying to decide if you think this is a right investment for you is a lot of the partners that I would be looking to work with, or maybe someone that you might know who could be interested in mortgage notes, are business owners. There are a lot of business owners who already have a full-time career, and they might not, they like their job. They don't necessarily want to leave their business, but they are still looking for passive income. So I think this mortgage note investing, being a truly passive income strategy, would be great for those types of people. If you are an investor, and with us on the call who are part of Fortune Builders or other education platforms, we're trained to look for cash buyers, right? So if you're an investor who has cash buyers, but part of the pain point is actually looking for inventory, if you'd be more geared towards investing in non-performing notes, mortgage notes would provide you with the ability to have inventory to provide to your cash buyers, and you can partner with them in that respect. If you're tired of looking for distressed sellers and distressed properties, and maybe you're more geared towards, okay, I'd rather invest in a distressed mortgage versus trying to negotiate the price down with an unreasonable seller, I think investing in mortgage notes would be beneficial for you. Another thing that I didn't necessarily tap into is your retirement portfolio. All of us, or at least I would assume that most of us on this call are entrepreneurs, and we have our LLCs and all of that set up. Mortgage note investing can be a great way to increase your retirement accounts. You can, if you have a self-directed IRA, and again, not giving legal advice, but if you do have a self-directed IRA associated with your business, you would be able to invest in mortgage notes and real estate within your self-directed IRA and be able to increase your portfolio that way. And then lastly, if you are potentially a tired investor, what I consider a tired investor is someone who enjoys real estate, but they just don't want to deal with property anymore. So investing in paper assets versus physical property would be a good transition into mortgage notes, in my opinion. So I will, this is my last slide, essentially. This is actually just a graphic of one of the mortgage notes that I'm currently invested in. So this is an investment in Wisconsin. Granted, I've never been in Wisconsin, probably never going to go to Wisconsin. I've never even heard of this place in Wisconsin, but I was able to invest in this property. And these are some of the numbers. So the purchase price was $10,000. The as-is value, so this is without me even putting any money into repairs or anything like that, is rough, and this is being conservative, is about $40,000. Their monthly payments, and this is a performing note, so they are currently paying $560 a month. So the return on investment is about 43%. And so this is just an example. Obviously, this is not going to be the situation for every note, but I just wanted to provide some real life examples of what the possibilities are in terms of investing in notes.
Wow, that's like amazing, Lorraine. I mean, you've never set a foot in that property.
No, nope. Boots on the ground.
And you have a 43% return of investment. That's unbelievable. Right. I love the passive side of it.
Yeah, I don't want to. And I've seen ROIs greater than this, and then I've seen ROIs a little bit less than this, like maybe 20%. But still, there aren't many investments, especially passive investments, that are giving 20% of interest these days. So that's just something to keep in mind. And yeah, that's pretty much what I have for everyone this evening. And I'm definitely open to any questions, or if I can clarify or expand upon anything.
Quick question. So that example was a lease option. So how many years are they supposed to be paying before? Do you have basically how many years do you have on it, and do they have to buy you out or refinance and get you out, or are they just going to pay off the loan?
So to give a little bit of backdrop on this particular property, the lease option is actually coming due in the next few months. So I through my servicer, which I didn't necessarily elaborate on that, but a servicer is essentially a property management company, and that's part of my boots on the ground team. I, through my servicer, have been in negotiation or in communication with the tenant to either renew this lease option or get them into a new contract. Now, this particular tenant is actually working on her credit. So that's why I initially seller finance. So she does want to keep the property. So we're looking to get her some local financing so she can pay me off, keep the property, and I'll move on to my next investment.
Right. So you're just making some money while you're helping her get situated and not lose the property. That's pretty nice.
That's correct.
That's
yep.
That's like
So
you're making money. You haven't, no, not that you haven't done anything, but I'm just thinking about how we go with those property. I'm like, what?
No, but I mean, and so again, for most of us on the call who are part of Fortune Builders, like the why that most of us came into is wanting to help people. And so you can still help people through mortgage note investing. And that's why I made the point earlier, like it's not just about with non-performing notes, foreclosing, taking back the property and doing all that. Because a lot of times the non-performing notes, the property can be vacant. And you just have to go through the foreclosure process just to do the legalese of getting the property back. You can still help people. You can do a loan modification for someone who's in a property who might not be able to afford their payments, but still wants to stay in the home. So yeah, there are various options within this strategy.
That's pretty
Hi, this is Robert.
Sorry, go ahead.
And this is my contact information. I think I did put it in the chat, but just in case if anybody wanted to screenshot it or something like that.
I have a question on how's the financing work on the notes?
What do you mean? Like, how can you buy a note?
Yeah, can you finance them like you do houses, or what's the process?
So it really depends on what you're looking to target. So I'll give an example. If you're looking into a performing note, honestly, it really doesn't matter, I guess, if it's performing or non-performing. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend or suggest taking out a loan to invest in mortgages, only because, like I mentioned, a performing note can go non-performing and a non-performing can go performing. So you really have to kind of keep in mind what can happen if something goes against what your initial strategy is. So for example, if you took out, let's say you took out a loan in anticipation of purchasing a performing note, and once all the due diligence is done and all the numbers make sense, and even if you're taking out a loan based on what you're receiving as a monthly payment for the performing note covers your loan and still provides you with cash flow, that's great. But if that performing note turns to non-performing, now you're kind of stuck holding the bag. So it's not to say that you can't take out a loan in order to buy a note, but I would be very cautious in going that route. One suggestion I would give people is that a lot of us, well, maybe not a lot of us, but anyway, there are some of us who have old 401ks. Like, let's say you had a previous job, you left your 401k there and it's just sitting there. You can take that money from an old 401k, not your current job. And again, let me say, I'm not giving any legal advice, but you can take a 401k from an old job, open up a self-directed IRA, and invest in mortgage notes or real estate through that self-directed IRA. That's one avenue that I would say if you don't have liquid funds available. Also, with our education and with our background, you can partner with a cash investor or a cash buyer. There are a lot of people who are looking for passive income that just don't want to do the work and I don't mean to make that sound bad, but you can partner with someone and say, listen, I have an asset, but I don't have all the capital. Are you willing to bring 100% of the capital? I bring the asset, and then we split the profits 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, whatever the case may be. Then you're able to fund your deal and not necessarily use all of your income. So though those would just be a couple of the suggestions that I would present, but I'd just be cautious about taking out a loan to invest.
Okay, excellent. Thank
Yeah.
you.
No problem.
So I was going to ask Lorraine, you talk about the property management locally that's helping you to manage the servicer, right? Because when we're talking about mortgage, the regular mortgage, you know, the banks have their servicers, and then the banks have their also the escrow company. So you as the lender, are you going to set up an escrow account all that also for them to pay for their property taxes and insurance?
The servicer does that.
Okay. So, and
the servicer can set up escrow.
Okay. And then when you connect with a company that has these properties or these notes, right? Do you pay them a fee in order to get that? Or is it, or do you split or at the table? How does that work?
So there are what's called a trade desk fee. So essentially, and when you think about it, it'd be very similar to a wholesale fee when we're looking into purchasing, I guess, traditional property, but it's not as much as a wholesale fee. But yes, there are trade desk fees associated with getting involved with the note. And that's essentially like just paying the seller, which is the bank or the hedge fund, the ability to purchase that note. So yes, but again, the trade desk fees are, I would say, significantly less than what normal wholesaling fees would be.
Okay, and then the servicer also, they get paid on a monthly rate, on a monthly basis?
So the servicer, and especially the one that that I'm using, they literally, it's a couple of $100. Well, let me not say a couple, a few $100 for the year in order to service the property. And because they're working all over the country, that's how they're able to make their costs or their fees that low.
Right. So they'll take care of, like we said, the escrow account for the taxes, insurance, and they'll take care also of, you saying coming, because your contract is coming due. So they're going to help with the negotiation, or you negotiate and they do the paperwork?
I have an attorney do the paperwork.
Okay.
You definitely, and that's one of your team members or your boots on the ground that would be involved. So generally it's a realtor, and the realtor is helping in the initial due diligence stage, is giving comps, so you can have at least a very close, accurate value of the property. So that's how I'm able to get these numbers similar to what I've shown on this slide without actually having to go to the property, is because I'm contacting a realtor in this area to say, okay, listen, I'm looking to purchase this property directly from the bank. Can you get me some comps? Can you get me some pictures of the property so I can get an idea of what my numbers are looking like? So yeah, so my boots on the ground is a realtor, an attorney, and generally the servicer.
Okay, so that's the people for your team. That's basically the three main people that you have on your team.
Essentially, yes.
And for attorney, is it a real estate attorney, or is it just a contracts attorney?
It's well, the attorney that a mixture of both. I mean, you ideally want a real estate attorney in the event that you have to do a foreclosure on the property. You want a real estate attorney, but a contracts attorney would do as well.
Just, I'm asking because I know with certain states have jurisdiction. So I know your servicer is nationwide. Your real estate the real estate agent has to be local. So your attorney also has to be able to legally work in the state that you're working in.
Absolutely, right.
So,
yeah.
So you'll probably
have to be licensed. Yeah, you have to be licensed in that state, or else whatever we're doing is null and void at that point.
So you're going to have multiple lawyers for different areas, or you have one that's licensed in different states.
Right. And the other thing that I'll mention regarding that, which is actually a great point that I didn't mention, is when we're looking to stay compliant with our business filings. And I can't speak to every state, but there will be some times where if you are investing in a state outside of where your business is registered, you may sometimes have to do a foreign filing for that particular state. It really depends on what that state's rules are. For this particular state that I'm invested in, their rule, I didn't have to foreign file because their rules are unless I have a business situated in that state, that's when I have to foreign file. But since I own a property, that's not considered a business, so I didn't have to foreign file. So it really just depends on the state on whether or not you would have to foreign file if you're looking to invest in multiple states. So I don't know if that was going to be a question, but that's also something to keep in mind.
So let me just ask more on that particular point, just because I know, and we're just starting to learn more about this as well. I am a real estate agent. I'm not a legal expert or anything, but
I gave the disclaimer. I'm not giving any legal.
But as you
no
get
legal
into business,
advice.
you have to start to understand these things. Again.
Right.
So
right.
we're basically recreating our companies in another state. But the thing that we understand is we can own the property in another state for Maryland, and we don't have to register in Maryland as long as we have a local Maryland company managing the property for us. So is that kind of the same that you're saying for some of your for that particular one, or have you seen things like that also in other states?
So for my particular property, like the Wisconsin rules said, and I even confirmed this with the attorney that I have out there, their rules say unless you have a business located in Wisconsin, you don't have to register your business there. So when I heard that, I said, okay, great. And I confirmed it with the attorney. Unfortunately, I can't speak to every state. But similar to what you mentioned about Maryland, like sometimes as long as you have, my business is registered in Nevada. I don't have anything in Nevada, but I have a registered agent in Nevada. So that allows me to be able to do business there. So it really just depends on what they're stipulating. New York, I could have a pen on the sidewalk, and they're going to require me to register my business there and pay property taxes. So it really just depends on what their rules are.
Are you doing most of your notes in Wisconsin, or are you in other states?
I'm right now, I'm just in Wisconsin, but I am looking into other states. And part of my criteria is I'm flexible between performing and non-performing, but part of my criteria is I want to be involved in non-judicial states. So states where if I have to foreclose on the property, it won't be I don't want to say as daunting of a task as a judicial foreclosure, but it won't take as much time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, that's really good information.
Well, thanks.
It is. Yeah.
I hope I provided, value to everyone who decided to spend their evening with us.
Any other question before I ask the $1 million question on how we get started?
I just want to say, I think you did a YouTube video with someone, right?
It did.
Yeah. And I watched it and I was so confused, and it makes a little more sense tonight. So thank you.
So, we are going to post this one on YouTube too. So hopefully, the two of them will be kind of linked, and then people can come and watch this one
as well.
Yeah.
Because so you guys know, we always provide the meeting videos to the host, so that when you guys have the link to their website, if they decide to put it, it's there. Or you can, feel free to look at our YouTube channel. You will see all the meetings. We post every single one of them. And if there's any clarification, you guys want us to ask the host to come back, everybody's been so grateful. And I know Lorraine will come back in a heartbeat.
Yes.
And we can do another session, or if you guys have specific questions, or you want to talk about specifically, you know, Wisconsin market or what's going on there or something like that, we can have her tailor her presentation, you know, time permitting. And, you know, if she has, you know, if she has time to come back to talk to us, we could always do that. Everybody's been grateful like that. So yeah, that's great. Any questions?
Thanks for watching, Erin. I mean, Mickey has been pushing me to do more videos, so I'm in the process of building my YouTube channel. So we'll see. But yeah, hopefully, I'm glad I could hopefully clarify a little bit more this evening.
Perfect. So how do we get started? How do we find out more about getting started through with your help? And what services do you provide, I guess?
So that's I'm going to answer that question in two parts, because it really depends on the level of involvement. And what I mean by that is, if you're looking to invest with a partner, so essentially maybe not getting foundational education regarding notes, but you're looking to just get involved and invest, then you can certainly contact me through any of the avenues that I have on the screen, and we can set up a consultation and kind of discuss your strategy, discuss what you're looking for, and see how we can move forward. But if you're wanting to get more of a foundational education, you want to learn nuts to bolts about mortgage loan investing, getting access to inventory, all of that stuff, then I can certainly pass along the information of the program that I'm affiliated with that provides more hands-on training and hands-on education regarding mortgage loan investing. It's not to say that I won't provide information or education regarding mortgage notes, but I'm more so in a consultation type of setting versus providing hands-on training. And so it depends on which way you're looking to go.
Okay, so if people want to get started, they would just reach out to you, and depending on what their, like you said, their level in involvement, or maybe their funds, available funds, what it is that they're trying to do, then you can tell them, okay, so if I help you set up, you know, let's say they have 30,000 and they want to set up maybe 1 to 2 notes for something small, or they just want one big notes, you would kind of guide them through the process, and you have, of course, your fee for your time, and you guys would discuss it up front. Okay, so if you want to do 1 property, it'll be this fee. If you want to do 2 properties, then it'll be this fee for me to help you get it set up, right?
Absolutely. And we can even partner on the, so you don't have to feel like you're going to be, out in no man's land by yourself. We can certainly partner on these mortgage notes and do it together. So the link to the website, or to my website there, will link you to my calendar, so we can set up a consultation if that's something to discuss further, for sure.
Okay, perfect. I hope does that clarify everybody's question? Do you guys have more question about how to get started?
To break it down a little better, what do we need to be, where do we need to be financially to come to you and decide, okay, this is what I want to do?
Right. So I won't give an exact price, because I've seen mortgage notes for less than $10,000, and I've also seen mortgage notes for in the 6 figures. So I don't want financial limitations to be the reason that someone doesn't want to either get involved or figure out strategically how you can get involved. Because again, we all have real estate experience, and we can always figure out a way of partnering with someone who has the capital to be able to help us get involved in this type of strategy. So I apologize if that's a bit vague, but I don't want to say, oh, you have to have 20,000 or you have to have a certain amount, because there's always a way to figure out something creatively. But outside of the financial or the initial financial investment, I think it's important to be able to at least have an entity set up if you don't already, because this is just my opinion. As I've said, no legal advice being given here, but having an entity set up, either if it's an LLC or if you're looking to do a retirement vehicle like a self-directed IRA or a solo 401k, having those things kind of already in place will help to expedite being able to invest in mortgage notes, because you essentially, especially for liability purposes, you don't necessarily want to invest in any real property or paper investments in your own name. So I would think that would be essentially a good starting point in terms of wanting to get involved.
Yes, thank you. You definitely
No problem.
gave a good answer. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so that would be.
Isa, you're muted.
Yes, I'm sorry. Technical, you know. There was a question here. Do you focus on first position, or do you also consider second position notes? That's a great question.
Thank you for that question, because I didn't expand upon that. First position, and second position is available as well. But I mean, who doesn't want to be first? So the notes that I have access to are 99% first position. I don't necessarily dabble in the second position. And just to clarify, the first positions are only superseded by the tax liens and tax deeds. But usually the banks, because they don't want properties to go to a tax sale, are paying the taxes even if they aren't paying the mortgage. Yeah, so for first position, mortgages or liens.
There was another question from Tasmia. She was asking, so when you say it's passive income, it's like cash flow every month or for a limited time, or one-time return from this investment?
If it's a performing note, it's going to be cash flow. I'm sorry, what was the cash flow repeatedly until for the duration or the maturity of the mortgage.
Okay.
Or the contract.
So it depends on the contract.
But if basically. But if it's a non-performing and you happen to take the property back and then sell the property, then that is a one-time return on investment.
So depending on your strategy, your exit strategy with that note.
Correct. Right. Yep.
I like the clarification, because it can get confusing if it's a performing one, it means that it's every month, and depending if you're selling it or wholesaling it, then you get your cash right away.
Right.
But if you're keeping it, or like in your case, that lady is going to buy the property, so then you're cash flowing until she actually completes she secures another loan to replace yours.
That's correct. Right. Okay. Yep.
Anybody else has any other questions?
How did I do, everyone? No, just kidding. Be gentle.
You did great. Thank you.
So everybody's thanking you. They're saying thank you. They really enjoyed this.
I appreciate that, everyone.
They were asking, what's the typical maturity time for these notes?
Right. So when you think about notes or mortgages in general, you're generally paying interest for at least the first 5 to 8 years of the mortgage. So that is typically when the banks are holding on to it, or that's the duration of time that the banks would be holding on to it, because that's how they're making their money. And so when they're looking to sell it, they have usually made back a good portion of their investment because of the interest that they've received for the first few years of the mortgage. So I would say that usually these notes have matured for at least, I would say 7 to 10 years generally, before they're looking to be sold by the banks or the hedge funds. I hope that was the question. I'm sorry if I misunderstood it. I don't know.
That was Mark.
Or Mark, maybe if I didn't answer, maybe you can unmute.
I was just wondering,
so
if you end up buying a note, how long do you guys typically hold them? Is it just like if we're talking about passive income, I'm assuming it'd be 10, 15, 20 years.
It depends. So you can always, okay, so let me try to give an example. Let's say you purchased a performing note, right?
Okay.
And there's, I don't know, 10 years left on the mortgage. You can hold on to it for 10 years, or you can hold on to it, get your money back, and resell that note, because because you're getting it at a discount, there still will be meat on the bones to sell it to an end buyer. Or you can sell a partial of it, which let me step back from the partials, because then that'll get a little bit confusing for those on the line. But long story short, you don't have to hold it for the whole maturity.
Exactly.
You can hold on to it, redeem your investment and resell it, or become flexible with that particular asset.
Okay, so it just kind of depends on what the particular note looks like, I suppose.
Right, and your strategy. And I apologize for continuing to say it depends, but it really depends, and that's because mortgages are so. I mean, this strategy is very flexible. So there's really not an end all be all or a definitive answer in a lot of instances.
That's pretty much every property we look at. It's like, hey, we're going to buy it as a flip, as a rental, as a wholesale.
Right.
Depends on what the numbers work out to be. So,
exactly.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think the way I understand it too, like I understand what you're saying. You don't really want to say a minimum or a maximum. It's the same thing, just like, with the other side of real estate investment. Depending on your budget, if you don't have enough money to start a renovation or purchase it, you can still be either private money, have a little bit of money that you lend to somebody that's going to grow it for you, or you can do a tiny renovation, or you can do a large one. So I guess it depends on how much money you have, where the money can get, put together, or like where can it be invested.
Right. And also understanding, and I want to kind of set the expectation, because I think as real estate investors, and maybe just even business owners in general, we're always looking for an immediate return. And it's not to say that you won't get your money back in a reasonable time frame, or you won't start generating a return on your investment in a reasonable time frame. But it does take a little bit longer with mortgage note investing to start seeing that return, versus a fix and flip where, you can purchase this property, maybe do a lipstick type of remodel and be in and out of it in 2 months or 3 months or whatever. That's not always going to be the situation with mortgage notes. So I just want to kind of set that expectation as well.
Okay, cool. Do you guys have any more questions? We're almost done with the time. I'm being requested, as you heard earlier, so. It comes around 8, they start popping in the back, and I'm like, I gotta shush them out. Anybody has any other questions? No, everybody's
Don't forget to save the chat, everyone. I'm actually going to save the chat right now, because there's a lot of contact information in here.
There's contact.
Yeah. No, I mean, we definitely value your time. Thank you for the great information, because Mickey and I know, and I was talking to one of our other friends that's online too. And I always say, you know, everybody that I know who's been an investor or even real estate agent, the first thing they say to be in the business a long time, you have to diversify your funds. It's good to be doing real estate. That's great. But you have to have money in different places. We know people that were coaching, now they own skip tracing companies, or they're doing rental.
I know that skip tracing company.
Yes, or you know, they have marketing companies. I mean, they're investors, but then they have this, or others are doing legal paperwork. They started here, you know. So I think if you really think about it, this real estate kind of like shows you all the possibilities, and whatever you become good at, take it and go with it, and then just make sure you're you know, all your funds at all mixed around, you know, in different places that are productive, you know, definitely.
And if I may, one thing I think I want to leave everyone with before we hop off is that I really want to help not only the borrowers and the sellers who are in these properties involved with the mortgage notes, but I really want to help investors who maybe are having a pain point or are struggling to get started within real estate, because I know two pain points are inventory and capital. And so one of those can potentially get solved with mortgage notes, and we just have to maybe get a little creative on the capital side. But I just want to share that because this has been very beneficial for me in my real estate journey, and I'd really want to help any other investors who might be going through the same situation get started and start moving forward. So yeah.
So we definitely appreciate your time, Lorraine. Thank you. It was really a pleasure meeting you face to face finally.
Yeah.
I've been hearing great things about you from Mickey, so this is really
nice. Mickey, you're making me blush.
Thank you for coming and explaining. And, you know, in my ad, I was saying, like, you know, it's a niche, and it is a niche. And, you know, just like Lorraine is proving that, you know, it's doable. And I'm just grateful that we're able to learn more. And so you have her contact number, but if ever you lose it or anything, always contact us. We'll put you in contact with Lorraine as well. It'll be on.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Yeah, definitely.
Really happy to be here.
Thank you very much for the info. I can talk a whole lot better than I can type, so I thought it'd be easier to do it this way.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We'll be in touch.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Looking
Thank
forward
you.
to
Thank you, guys. Have
Thank
a nice
you.
night. Thank you, Lorraine.
Joining us to another